Hello and welcome to episode 3 of the After Dark podcast. My name is Marano, and for today's episode, I'll be talking with Catherine as they share their own personal story about domestic violence. Okay, hey Catherine, thanks so much for taking the time to be on the podcast today. I really appreciate it.
You're welcome, Isaac. Thank you so much for having me.
That is okay. So I thought I might start maybe back at the start. I was wondering if you could share a little bit of what it was like in your home life growing up and the relationship between your parents.
Yeah, so this one is a bit complex and tricky. So my mum is from the Philippines and my dad's Australian. So he went to the Philippines to find a bride that he could really, I guess, there was that power imbalance. He wanted a wife that would, cook and clean, give him children, a wife he could use her body for sex whenever it pleased him. And mum grew up with 12 brothers and sisters living in the slums in the Philippines, in Cebu.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and so she, being one of the older siblings, it was really her responsibility to work as young as she could and bring back money to the family. So my mum saw this as an opportunity to escape her poverty, and also working in Australia enabled her to make money to send back home. So for her, it was just an opportunity that she couldn't say no to. Which is, it is what it is, and I'm grateful to have been born. But growing up with that, you see that it's almost like the gender roles play out in front of you. So mum looked after the children, mum did everything at home, mum wasn't allowed to cook traditional meals, speak in her native tongue. Dad was quite racist, so even though he chose an Asian bride, he was really ashamed of her.
Oh, okay.
And then Dad was also a bit sexually inappropriate with me growing up. I was sexualized quite young. I think I got a lot of my worth was really wrapped up in how I could maybe be a wife or be attractive to men. And I mean, this is only things that I've worked through in the last couple of years and really come to understand. And when you grow up like that,
Yeah, okay.
I thought it was normal, but there was their relationship was not one of love or trust or partnership. He was the dominant man and mum was the submissive, woman. So that certainly affected my views on men and women and relationships.
Yeah, of course, because that would have been tough for you when it came time for you to start dating. That's kind of how you would perceive relationships to be.
Exactly. Yeah. And so unfortunately, my first sexual experience was a rape. And although it was terrible, I also thought that, it was just one of those things that just happened and was normal. And all my relationships since then have been some kind of abusive. And again, I just thought that that's how men were.
Wow, yeah, that's tragic to hear, but because you should never have had to go through any of that,
No.
especially at such a young age as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
Do you remember what it was like generally at the start of the relationship?
Always at the start, it's very, it's extremely loving, extremely quickly. So there's a lot of emotions. There's a lot of flattery, a lot of kind words. You're almost treated like a goddess. And it's only when you really feel that this person loves and respects you, almost looks up to you, that things start changing and, abuse starts coming into it. So with my last relationship, and I go back to my last relationship because it was so bad. It was so physically abusive. And once I'd gotten out of it, I thought, right, this has just been, 18 years. So my first sexual experience was at 15. And then my last relationship ended 2 years ago, and I'm almost 35. So it's almost 18 years of in and out of these abusive relationships. But it was my last one that made me go, okay, this isn't normal and this isn't okay. And I cannot do this one more time.
Yeah.
I'm going to try to work out where I've gone wrong. And I got a lot of therapy and did a lot of soul searching. And now I feel like I've come out of the other end where I can really look at my life and understand why my childhood played such a big role in the partners that I was with.
Yeah.
So the ex from 2 years ago, he was just, I don't know, he was just like this man, this incredible man that showered me in attention, gave me lots of gifts, was really over the top affectionate, and it was wonderful, and I thought it was true love.
Yeah. I guess he was giving you everything that you thought you needed.
Exactly. Yes.
With that most recent relationship, like, he obviously wasn't abusive the whole time, but when did things start changing, do you think?
So I was only with him a year, and it was towards the very end that it started with little things like I just couldn't seem to do anything right. If the house wasn't perfectly clean, if I didn't have the right food in the fridge, if I'd washed and ironed his clothes but I hadn't put them away, things like that, just which seemed small at the time, but it made me feel that he was so unhappy with me, and maybe if I just did all those little things, he'd treat me better. So it was more emotional to start with. But within that, I mean, financially, everything was in my name. So the house we were renting was in my name. I only worked casually, so I was limited, in my earning capacity.
Yeah.
And when he was physically abusive and I was showing the bruises, I couldn't work. So, so there was emotional, financial, and of course the physical abuse.
Yeah. Could you remember seeing any red flags or warning signs early on that you might have thought, that something might be up?
Just the way that he spoke to me, I should have realized with the little things that I wasn't doing right around the house. Why is that even a big deal? And also, why is that my sole responsibility? I do enough.
Yeah.
Surely these chores are things that you do together in a relationship. And then little things like speaking down to me, making me feel insecure in the way I looked. They are all red flags. Just questioning, I was always questioning, was I good enough? And of course, I didn't feel that I was.
Yeah, which would have been really tough, just being involved in multiple relationships where that's the case, and you've lost all track of who you are as a person and what your real worth is.
Exactly. And so I don't think I ever had any self-worth. I think it was just all wrapped up in what I could do to please other people. I had nothing for myself. I didn't think I felt like almost like here I am presenting as a human being, but inside I am nothing. It's really challenging coming out the other end and putting in so much effort to change, because even sometimes I have almost this inner dialogue. So sometimes I'll put myself down and then I'll have this other conversation with myself and go, don't think like that. you've been conditioned to think like that, snap out of it. Yeah. So, I mean, it's hard. It's like I have to forge these new neural pathways in my brain where I look at myself with compassion and kindness and love. And it really, if I can't start with that, I'm not going to get that from anyone else.
No, that's right. That's right.
And it's a hard thing to learn, to have worth because I am who I am and I am worthy of it for myself, but to have always gotten it or felt that I was getting it from external people. Yeah. Oh my gosh. It's a whole change of mindset, but you can get there.
Yeah. But just starting with trying to, I guess, work on yourself first, and not, I guess, the whole concept of self-love and everything as well.
Yes, exactly.
Okay. So with the abuse in the relationship, would you be able just to go into a little bit more detail, if that's okay, and share a little bit more about what happened?
Yeah, so in a way, I consider myself lucky. I am a part of a women's group and they've had a lot of prolonged trauma in their relationship. So my ex, there was 2 occasions where he physically assaulted me really badly. So the first time we were at dinner with another couple, 2 of our friends. We were engaged, so my ex and I were engaged. The lady who was my friend was going to be my bridesmaid, and we're at her house that she shared with her partner, who was going to be his best man. And we were sitting around having dinner, and we had planned to stay with them for a couple of days. And I had gotten up to have a shower, and he's come into the shower and dragged me out into the kitchen by my hair. And listen, I had no idea. I had no idea that this was going to happen. So there I am in the shower, and he's dragged me out by my hair, dragged me into the kitchen, kicked me to the ground. I kept trying to get up. He sat on top of me. He kept slamming me and pushing me down onto the ground. And I'm naked, and I'm in my friend's kitchen, and I'm embarrassed and shocked and scared, and I don't understand what I've done. And then he has let me get up, and he's told me to put some clothes on. So I go into the bedroom and I get dressed, and he comes running with a knife, and he holds it to my face, and he's shouting this whole time. He's shouting, "Look what you're making me do," and "Is this what you want?" And I'm screaming and crying, and I'm confused. And then he holds the knife to his own stomach, and my friends then kind of jump in, and all 3 of us trying to take the knife off him. And then he again drags me by my hair out of their apartment. So they lived on the 3rd floor of this apartment complex in Perth City. And we go to the stairwell. Sorry, that's another thing, Isaac, you'll have to excuse me. Sometimes I laugh to cope.
Oh, no. So that's okay.
If you hear a smile or a laugh, that's just me trying to cope with a very awkward, uncomfortable situation. So anyway,
no, not a problem, no.
He has told me to walk down the stairs, and I try to take the stairs, and he kicks me down so that I tumble down the stairs. So I end up falling because he won't let me get up. So he's either pushing me or kicking my legs out from under me, and we get to the ground floor that way. And then he just drags me by my hair out of the apartment complex, out into the street, maybe 500 meters to the Swan River. So in the city, we have the Swan River that runs along the city shore.
Okay.
And he pushes me into the water, gets in after me and holds me down. And I'm thinking, he's going to drown me. I'm going to die here. It's cold. It's dark. My so-called friends haven't said a word. They're not doing anything. They followed us to the river, and No one's
Oh,
standing
really?
up for me. No one's doing anything. And thank God, uh, somebody on the street must have called the police. So my friends, the police sirens come, and this couple take off, and the police help us out of the water. And then we end up going to hospital because my ex thinks he has hypothermia from being in the water. And after all of that, and after all, he gets released from hospital and we go back to my friend's apartment. He's very apologetic and he says he's drank too much and he has mental health issues and he's so sorry and he doesn't know what came over him. And this is the first time I've seen him ever act like that. And
Oh,
I
okay.
just try to make excuses for it in my mind. And I think, okay, well, yeah, maybe it was the alcohol, maybe he's got all these things going on, I don't know. But I stay with him and life kind of returns to normal. And 2 weeks later, we're at home. I'm in the kitchen doing the dishes and he calls me into the bedroom and I step through the bedroom door and he's standing right there and he punches me to the face. And this must have been about 9:30 at night. That whole night he was beating and torturing me. I was passing in and out of consciousness. At one point he has gone into the shower and he's soaked a towel in water and he's got me pinned. He comes back. I'm passed out, but I wake up and his forearm, he's on top of me and his forearm is pressed against my throat. And so I wake up because I can't breathe. And when I do come to, he places this wet towel over my face and he has a water bottle and he waterboards me. It's a torture technique where you pour water slowly onto a wet piece of cloth and it makes you feel that you're drowning. You can't breathe. And I think the abuse that night ended at 3 a.m.
Yeah, like so from 9:30 till 3 in the morning. That's
Yep.
just insane.
Just beating me and strangling me and torturing me.
Wow, so what happened the next day? Like, how did you get through this?
Well, it stopped because my daughter had come and knocked on the bedroom door and has just called out, "Mum, are you okay?" So unfortunately, she's heard.
Oh no, she was home. Like,
She was
what?
home.
Oh,
Yeah, she luckily didn't hear a lot of it, but she heard enough, and that kind of made him stop. Yeah, and I was allowed, and I was exhausted, and I was probably concussed, and I just went to sleep. And in the morning, he went out, and I had to call in sick to work, and I just stayed at home. I stayed at home for weeks until the bruises went away, and my parents would take my daughter to and from school.
wow. So did you have any other support from friends or family at this time?
It's really hard because for me, I felt so much shame. I felt that it was he was my partner and I'd chosen to be with him. And he'd done this to me. So domestic violence in itself is really isolating. The perpetrator wants the victim to be isolated. So you don't have a lot of contact with your family and friends in the first place. But then add the shame that you feel as a victim to the already established isolation. No, the support, well, my life had become so entwined with his that I considered his family and friends, well, I saw them more than I saw my own. So,
Oh, okay.
and they really, they acknowledged the abuse, but they didn't support me in any way. So although they all knew what had happened, his auntie had come to visit me a few times, and I felt that I couldn't really leave the house looking like that. And, she was more saying, well, next time don't do anything to make him treat you that way. And I don't even know why he did it. So he wasn't held accountable. His family and friends just kind of, I didn't even get asked if I was okay. Not one of them asked me if I was okay.
Not even a simple okay?
Not even an are you okay? No. So it's a very difficult time in my life.
Would he kind of control who you couldn't talk to? Like, were you kind of cut off from friends and family over time?
Yeah, absolutely. Because he would, I don't know, he would either speak about my friends and family in such unpleasant ways that I just didn't want to talk about them or be seen talking to them, or I didn't want him, I don't know, almost like he would put down everyone that was close to me and speak about them in such terrible ways that I just thought, I didn't want to hear it. So I just thought, oh, well, I just won't speak to anyone.
Yeah, and then that just kind of perpetuates the isolation and that feeling of just being on your own.
Yes, it's very lonely. It's really lonely.
Yeah, and how were you able to get out of that relationship in the end?
Well, I suspected, so after the second assault, the night of the beating and torture, he wasn't home that much. I really didn't see him that much. And I felt that he had started seeing someone else. And it turns out he was. The couple whose apartment we were at, the woman who was supposed to be my bridesmaid, they actually started seeing each other. She broke up with her partner and started seeing my then partner. So it's a combination of him already finding someone else and wanting to be with someone else. And I also had so people who are like this, abusers, they almost want to drain their victims entirely, just use them up so that there's nothing left to them at all. And I really feel that he did that with me. My mental health was at such a bad point. I had no friends. I had no support. I hadn't been able to work. I had no finances. And I was so lonely. And I was terrified. I mean,
yeah, of course,
he told me he would kill me. That night, he was telling me over and over again that he would kill me, that he would murder me, that I would be dead soon. And so I was almost waiting for him to finish me. And I got to a point where I thought that I couldn't wait anymore. He wouldn't communicate with me, so he wasn't at home. I didn't know when he was going to come home. He wouldn't even talk to me or text me. So when I was at home, I was always waiting and on edge, and every noise that I heard, and I thought it was him coming back, and I thought it was him coming back to kill me, and I wasn't sleeping well. I was just terrified all the time, and I was at such a low point in my mental health. I thought I would rather take my own life than wait for it like this. It was unbearable. So one night I got really drunk and I sat in the bath and I sliced my arms open and I made a video of it and I sent it to him and I sent it to a couple of his friends, and I just said, I'm done. I cannot do this anymore. There's nothing left to me. You don't have to come back and finish me. I've done it to myself.
Yeah.
I just want to die. So just leave me to it. I'm gone. Forget about me. And luckily, he called his auntie to come over, and she came over and called an ambulance, and they took me to hospital and stitched me up. In the meantime, she robbed me. So she
Oh, the auntie.
took the auntie, yeah. She went through my wallet and took my key card and took all the change out of our swear jar, and she took my devices and my phone, and
What?
yeah.
When she's
Yeah.
trying to help you save your life, and then at the same
But she
time does
robbed
that?
me. Yeah, and jewelry, she took jewelry. And yeah, so when I got out of hospital, I she she picked me up from hospital and took me back home, and I didn't realize it straight away that I'd been robbed. But I said to her, "Can you call him and just tell him that I never want to see him again and to please just let me go?" And so she did. She made that phone call in front of me, and he just said to her, "Yep, that's fine. Pack all my shit for me." And she did, and she left, and I never saw him again. And that was on the 11th of December 2016. I walked out of hospital, and our relationship ended. I really feel that it was a combination of me being, in his eyes, so pathetic and empty and worn down. There was nothing left to me anymore. There was nothing left to gain. So it was a combination of that, and also that he'd already moved on. And I'm so grateful that he had. I think that if he hadn't have found someone else, I mean, I might be dead. If
Yeah.
he wasn't willing to let me go because he hadn't found someone that he considered better, then, I mean, I hate to think where I would be. I might not be here anymore. So at first I felt betrayed by my friend for being in a relationship with him. But as has gone on, I pity her, because she's been manipulated as well. I can only imagine that if you witness someone doing that to your friend, and then you choose that you want to be with them, I mean, what kind of childhood has she had, or what has he done to manipulate and abuse her? So, I mean, a terrible, terrible situation, but one that I'm really can't help but feel gratitude for, because I'm alive, and I never spoke to him again. Yeah.
Yeah. Wow, that's just incredible that's how low things had to get just for you to for things to kind of be over.
I know.
Like for you to just to try and take your own life. It's tragic.
It's tragic, and it's just desperate, and but I'm here, and I'm just glad I got my freedom.
Yeah, Catherine, and I'm so glad that you are still here.
Thank you.
I know that your friends and family would feel the
Yes.
same way, and especially your daughter as well.
Thank you.
So, do you find it tough now to be able to talk about things, um, I guess, without being as emotionally attached to the situation?
It was really hard to talk about initially, but I once I was out of the relationship, I wanted to tell anyone who would listen, because abuse is it is, like we said, it's so isolating and it's so lonely, and there's such a shame associated with it for the victim or survivor. I like to call myself a survivor.
Yep.
But
So you should. So you should.
I wanted to turn that, and I wanted to go, no, this isn't my shame, it's his. And I will talk about it, and I'll talk about it as much as I can, and to whoever will listen. And maybe other survivors will be, inspired by that, because it's not our shame. We shouldn't have to feel like it's our fault. And I think, the more everyone talks about it, the better for society.
Yeah.
So to be at a point where I am now, I am more disconnected from it. I don't feel as much emotion as what I did initially. It's just something terrible that happened to me. Even, it sounds a little crazy, but it really forced me, or I decided that I never wanted to experience anything like that again, not even remotely like that. I don't want to be anywhere near abuse. And I've done so much self-development that I probably look back at that and go, as horrific as it was, the good that has come from it is that I've educated myself and I've understood myself and I've changed, and I will hopefully never be in a similar situation. And not only that, I can advocate for, to raise awareness and hopefully change this massive, massive problem of domestic violence in Australia. I mean, fingers crossed.
Yeah, well, no, you're on the right track for sure, because the world definitely needs more people talking about domestic violence. So, no, you're definitely onto a good thing here. So, Catherine, I was just wondering, how do you think that your future relationships would be affected after being involved in previous abusive relationships?
Well, survivors will often either never get into a relationship again, or they will get into a relationship very quickly, which is dangerous, because with these really fast-tracked relationships, it could be another abusive one. So first of all, yeah, people need to understand that. For me, I've just started seeing someone, and I have a lot of, I see red flags everywhere. I think
I know it would be tough.
everyone is abusive. I pick up on little things that someone says, and I think, oh, red flag, or that's not right, or that's disrespectful. And even when not everyone is abusive, not everyone is trying to hurt me or trigger me or insult me. So, yeah, that's difficult, because I don't know. I don't know who I can trust. So trust is a big issue.
Of course, yeah.
Yeah. And then there's the insecurities. So no matter what, I do still get insecure. I wonder if someone's just going to come into my life to, use or abuse me again. And then, of course, there's the whole thing. I've come to a point now where I know that I am worthy, but then there's always that little voice that tells me I'm not, and that's just something that will probably be around for years, or maybe for the rest of my life. So that's tricky. And I've put up so many walls. I just try to protect myself, so I don't want to feel vulnerable.
Yeah.
I think of love as more a chemical reaction in my own brain than something between two people. So I've lost a bit of my faith in love. And that's all really hard.
Yeah.
I mean, and of course, there's the whole thing where I have to at some point tell, well, with the man I'm with now, there was a point where I had to tell him, well, this is where I've come from. This is my past. My ex was extremely violent. And then, unfortunately, he had to make a decision on whether to be with me or not. And that's hard, because there's a lot of, that's a lot. And there's a lot of history there, and there's a lot of trauma there. And there's, I mean, my ex is in prison now for 10 years, but anyone who's going to be with me, when that 10 years is up, what's going to happen then? Well, we don't know. Am I safe? Am I ever going to be safe? Is my ex going to want to come after me for, helping put him in prison?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, just the uncertainty.
Will my family ever? exactly. Will my family ever be safe? We don't know, and that's a big thing. I mean, if I started seeing a man and he had a story similar to mine, and I had to think of that point that in 10 years, perhaps the life I've made with him or the children I've had were compromised. Um, Honestly, Isaac, I don't think I would pursue that relationship. So there's a lot of I doubt myself. Am I worth that to anyone? I don't know. It's a lot. It's hard.
Like, I guess they might see it as a lot of baggage to take on board in a new relationship, and then you're
Exactly.
wondering if, well, can they handle it, or will they stick around long enough to
Yes.
see it through?
Yes. And there's a lot of patience required with that. Um, I do have, I mean, this time of year, which is the anniversary of the abuses and when I stepped out of hospital, this has been a very triggering time of year for me. And my partner now is aware of that. But some days I am really, I'm terrified or I'm unhappy, and it's all related to the trauma of what had happened. Um, and I mean, I'm blessed because he's very patient and understanding of that. But that in itself isn't easy. It's not easy for someone you care about. It's not easy to watch someone you care about going through that kind of emotional turmoil. And there are a lot of people out there that aren't going through things like that. And I do wonder if it is too much to ask of a partner.
Yeah, yep. And then wondering if you are good enough for them, like if
Yes,
if they can handle it all.
yes, because I've gladly come to a place where I know I am worthy and I'm great. You know, I'm a good person. I'm I have all these amazing qualities to me, but unfortunately, I have had a lot of trauma in my life, and that's probably going to affect me for a long time. So no matter how much value I know I have, I can't escape my past and what's happened. And yeah, it's a choice whether he can or anyone in future relationships with me. Is it too much for anybody to handle?
Yeah, no, you're right. And what advice, Catherine, would you give to somebody that's currently in a relationship with a survivor of domestic violence?
Try to read and research and understand the psychology of trauma and post-traumatic stress, um, because if you can understand it, you you're better equipped to kind of care for and understand what your partner is going through. Um, a big thing, I think, with any mental illness is if you don't understand what it's like. I've had this said to me several times. You know, it's over now. You're safe. You know, move on or
Yeah,
get over it, or
yeah,
why can't you let it go? And with PTSD, it's I know intellectually that I'm safe and that it's over, and I want to move past it. But there are times where my body is triggered by a memory, and sometimes I'm not even aware of what that is. But something will happen, and I'm suddenly terrified, and I'll go back to that place where I thought I was going to die. Or, I mean, for a long time I couldn't be around water. I couldn't take a bath. Um, I couldn't be by the beach. I couldn't be by the river. I couldn't, you know, and I would just feel such extreme terror to it all, and I couldn't help it. And I knew that I was safe, but my body was reacting, and there was nothing that I could do about it. So I think if you really want to make a relationship work with a survivor, please try to understand, yeah, PTSD and the psychology behind what they're going through.
yeah, exactly. And it does make a lot of sense, like what you were saying, with just for the partner just to try and have the patience to
Yes.
see this through, because it's just such a tricky situation to be in, and there's no real rule book on how to act in this kind of relationship. But yeah, you definitely can't go wrong with patience. And also, just wondering too, Catherine, you mentioned a little bit before about your daughter and how she
Yes.
had kind of witnessed and heard as well some of the abuse that was going on at home.
Yeah, this is a big, big problem. So, unfortunately, children from family and domestic violence backgrounds, they will more than likely go on to be abusive to their partners or have partners that abuse them. And a lot of people think that, for example, your daughter's seen this happen to you. She would never accept that behaviour in a partner because she knows she's watched what you've been through. She wouldn't accept it. No, unfortunately, that's not how it works. Our children learn by mirroring us. It's our behaviours and what they see.
Yeah.
And even though she didn't like what I'd been through, it's kind of, and I mean, I don't understand fully the psychology of it. I just know that having been through something so terrible doesn't make you avoid it. In a lot of cases as a child, if there's that trauma there, that child will go on to be traumatized in a similar way as adults. So I do worry that the cycle of abuse will continue with her. And that's the thing as well that I would like to say to any parent or any parents out there, if you are in a relationship and there's violence and you don't have the strength to leave for you, please try to have the strength to leave for your children, because if there's abuse in your relationship, understand that your children are at the very least being emotionally abused as well. To see that happening to someone you love, that's emotionally abusive. Your children are being abused as well. They might not be being physically hit or assaulted, but watching you, even if they're not confronted with it face to face, they know there's something wrong. They can pick up the tension. They might see bruises. That is emotionally damaging for them. If you don't have the strength to leave for you, please try to have the strength to leave for your children. That's a huge message I would like to get across.
Yeah, that's so incredibly important. As
Yeah.
tough as it would be, to try and leave if you didn't have kids, it would be even just that much harder having your own child there as well, and wanting to kind of get out of that life for them.
You have to get out of that life for them because it's almost a curse. That life is a curse, and the sooner you can leave, the better.
Yep, just whatever it takes. But like what you said a little earlier as well, that you had been kind of in other abusive relationships, but it would always come to that turning point where you were like, all right, so enough is enough, and I just have to get out. There's just no other option.
Yes, but I really think that if you don't look back into your past and confront why you are continuously in relationships where you're being re-traumatized, you will never find a partner who treats you right, with respect, because I really feel ultimately we choose partners we think we deserve. And absolutely, I didn't know that I was getting into these relationships to be abused. I didn't know that there would be abuse there. But now that I've learned so much about it all, I feel that I could pick up abusers from a mile off. You do learn to see the signs, things they say, how they act, the way they speak about their ex-partners or their parents, or, there's if you can take the time to learn and educate yourself, you can avoid these people. But to do so, you need to have a solid understanding of why this has happened to you in the first place. And that's why I can recognize, I mean, I love my parents. I love my dad as well, and he didn't treat me well or right, or how a daughter should be treated, or how any woman or girl should be treated. But you still love your parents. You always will. And I can look back at their relationship and my childhood and go, right, that's why I held such little value to myself. And I could see the way Dad treated Mum and Mum's role around the house. And so once you can look back and go, oh, that's why I kind of am the way I am, then you can take the steps forward to unlearn those behaviours, and also unlearn that so much is tied up in gender roles. It's not really a woman's place. You know, I think people need to start being uncomfortable with this whole idea that women have children and stay at home, and men will be more, the breadwinners in the family. What's wrong with mums and dads sharing cooking and cleaning and parenting? And I mean, a lot of it has changed in recent years, but we really need to understand that we're human beings, and men and women are equal, and partnerships are partnerships. There should be no one who's weaker in a relationship. But if you've seen that growing up, if you've seen that inequality growing up, more than likely, without even realizing it, you're bringing that into your relationships as well. And it's a whole mindset that, I mean, society, we've kind of grown up like that, but we need to try to think differently.
Yeah, no, you're right. Yeah, so just wondering, what advice would you give to someone that might be currently in an abusive relationship?
First of all, and I know it's hard, don't be ashamed. It is not your shame. It's your abuser's shame. And I know you probably feel bad and that you made this choice and that you're with them, and so you hold some responsibility for how they treat you. That's rubbish. You don't deserve this. You are worthy of love and respect, and you should be considered an equal to them. If someone's abusing you, they don't consider you an equal, but don't be ashamed of that, okay? It's not your shame. If you can confide in people, you will find supportive people out there. And if you can try to lessen this isolation and loneliness, it will be so much better for your mental health, and you should be able to find more strength to leave. Another thing I would say, and this is hugely important, see your doctor or your GP. They are professionals who have a legal responsibility to record everything that you're saying. So don't be ashamed to go in there and let them know that, maybe your mental health is suffering because of how you're being treated by your partner. Let them record any bruises and injuries. That will always be there for you to come back to if eventually you can or want to leave the relationship. There has to be some kind of record going into the future that these things have occurred, and I really think that your doctor is the best place to start for that.
Yeah, that's amazing advice. That's just to try and make sure to document things as well, like not so it just goes unnoticed and then the bruises fade and things start again.
Absolutely, because when it comes down to it, if you have children and family court issues, if you're going to separate, if you're going to divorce, or if you want this person charged with offences in the future, which they should be, a lot of the time it's your word against, and I'm going to say his, and just going because that's the statistics around it is more men are abusers. It's going to be your word against his. So if you can have that record from a medical professional, that will really help you. And you could always say that I mean, you could have any number of reasons for going to the doctor. Say it's a urinary tract infection or something to do with women's issues. He might not want to come into a doctor's visit like that.
Oh, okay, yep. And then you can still have the chance to speak about things.
Yes.
Yeah. Oh, that's, great advice for sure, Catherine. And
Thank you.
I was wondering if there was anything else, just before we wrap up, if there's any other topic that or something that you were thinking along the way that you'd like to share, or anything else you'd like to say.
As hard as it may be to have a friend or family member accused of violence, please try to understand how hard it is for their victim. And people tend to have forged loyalties, especially within family, where it doesn't matter that their own son is beating his wife because you're a family and that's your son and that's your blood. That is the wrong attitude to have. When we stand with people like this, we're enabling them to lead these lives. And really, if you're going to be a violent or abusive person, you really don't deserve any support. I don't think you do. These people aren't going to get any help to change. And there are programs out there that can help perpetrators change. There are systems out there that can help them. But if they've got you standing by their side, believing all their lies, what's going to motivate them to change? Nothing. They've always got you to go back to. They've got their family, they've got their friends, they've got their job. And it's wrong. We need to show these people that unless they do change, they've got nothing. Don't leave the victim isolated while you support the person that's hurting them. We need to show these people that this behaviour is unacceptable, and to do that, we need to retract all support.
You've been so amazing, Catherine, to be able to talk about all this, and your experience and share your story. As challenging as it must have been, I do really appreciate it.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. Thank you for listening.
No, not a problem. All right, well, thanks for making the time again. Had a great time talking to you, and wish you the best of luck in the future, and I'm sure we'll be in touch.
Yes, thank you so much, Isaac. Have a lovely weekend, and I'll speak to you soon.
All right, you too, Catherine. Okay, bye.
Okay, thank you. Bye.
Thank you so much for taking the time to listen to this story of hope. If you know of anyone that might be struggling with domestic violence, please feel free to share this podcast with them. If you believe in the value of sharing these stories and would like to donate to show your support, I would really appreciate it. To find out more about donating, please visit afterdarkpodcast.com. So, until next time, my name is Isaac Marano, and this is the After Dark Podcast.